Go, go, go.
Oh gosh.
Hey, everybody. Oh, that's really bright.
Okay, well.
Happy Friday. We are not prepared. Well, we're prepared, like, with the information, but not, like, with the light. That is so bright. Oh, that's much better.
Yeah, that works.
Hey, guys. It is Friday. Finance Friday. Woohoo! Starting off with a bang. Sorry.
There we go.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
Starting off with a bang. This is the show where we transform your relationship with your money by giving you the information you need to grow and protect your wealth. I am Amy Novakovich. This is Ryan Wilson. Follow us on Twitter at Noble Wealth Management, NGMT. Find us on YouTube, on Instagram, Noble Wealth Management, our website, noblewealthmanagement.com. We have all our social media stuff. You can see our podcast, The Noble Wealth Show, which will also post this to the podcast, and you can see that there because this is going to be an awesome show.
Yeah.
This is probably
watch on all of the things.
Yeah,
all
of those things. Because, and I didn't share that. I didn't bring my phone in here to share it out.
I'll share it out.
But share this out because this is where we're going to give you factual information. This is no bias, just facts. I mean, we've got charts, economy. I mean, we looked up all the raw data because we were trying to not have any opinion. But this is one of the largest issues probably that I foresee being in the election for next year is a lot of our government debt, our social programs that we all are going to rely on when we retire, things like Medicare, Social Security, and everybody says, by 2025, it's going to be gone. By 2028, you're going to be completely on your own for Medicare. Like, there's all these awful things. So we're just like, what's going on? We need to know really the truth because I mean, who doesn't want the truth?
Yeah.
Right?
You can't handle the truth.
So Ryan and I are both super nerds. I just want to show you Ryan's research. Why did you type this up?
Because I just thought it was better than my handwriting.
Yeah.
Got some charts.
Got some handwriting here. So we definitely have a lot of data. So the first thing I really want to get out there is this government debt. Mm-hmm. Because so many people say the government debt is not sustainable. It's getting larger and larger. We're going to go bankrupt as a country. I mean, it's these big, big, big things. Yeah. That it's going to crash the stock market, all this stuff. You hear all this negative stuff. So we started to really look at facts of what's the government debt like. Yeah,
and some of that is factual, but it's
a lot of money.
But it's also to make headlines. So like the example that the deficit is growing. Sure, that is true.
Well, it is at a record high.
It is at its record high, but it has been.
When you look at this first chart, if I think anybody can see, no, this way. Well, it's hard to do backwards. Wow.
It's at a record high for sure, but that is just to create headlines when you read that because in relation to our income or GDP, it's actually at a pretty low comparatively if you look at the next chart.
The next chart shows the
backwards,
debt.
That's kind of weird.
Is it backwards? I don't think so. Right here is the new. Yes, 2020.
Oh yeah, okay.
So the government debt payments, so the amount that we owe as a percentage of what we're actually bringing in. So when you compare it to a household, what's the strange look?
Oh, nothing.
Can you not see it?
No, I was looking because the my
and this is from First.
Now.
Oh, yeah.
So I was looking to see how much battery.
This is from First Trust, which is a company, an investment company out of Chicago. Huge company. I think it's $80 billion under management now. One of the fastest growing companies and the most read commentary, even over like Morningstar. So they put out a lot of great charts. This was an economist, their chief economist that I heard speak. And he basically said, it's not as scary as it seems because although it's the highest, our GDP, our income is also at the highest. It's at an all-time high. So our debt payments as a percentage of our income are pretty low. So compare it to like a household income.
Yeah. So the best way of looking at it is, so the U.S. private market has about $300 trillion in assets. Okay. And our income, what the U.S. brought in last year was $20 trillion. And our debt is now at 22.2 trillion, rising every second. Right. So to break that down, to take zeros
out
away,
some of the zeros.
To make it look more a little bit,
something
really more understandable. If you had a family member,
you run with this for a second. I'm gonna get my phone to share it out.
If you had a family member that had a business that had $300 million in assets, and that person then they showed sales of $20 million a year, and then they had a loan that was $22 million. Would you be mad if they were to give you their company? And the answer, I hope this is the answer that you would have, it would be no, because you're rich. You have $300 million in assets. You have $20 million a year in sales, and you have a loan that you're making payments on every year. So the current interest that we're paying is about 1.5% of our GDP, which is relatively low. And compared to the 1980s and 1990s, it was actually at 3%. So we have quite a bit to go.
This goes back to 1950.
Yeah. So you can see here on that chart that it's around 3.
Right. It goes back to 1950.
That spike there.
And then that was like the crash, right? So that was the 90s crash, the 2000s, and then right there was at our high.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're still low. And so it would take a lot of growth and a pretty slow growth in our economy to actually make it where we're back at that 3%. So in relation to our country's growth and everything, like we're actually not, the deficit is not as bad as everyone's making out.
So every single person, Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter, because the last 3 presidents we've had Republicans and Democrats, they know what they're doing by spending money. Let's just say that. When they spend money, it seems to be pretty calculated. Now, when they debate and they talk as politicians, it doesn't seem that way.
No.
They're using it as like ways to sling mud and to make headlines. But the facts are, I feel like, they all know, they all have a chief economist that is like, that's not bad,
Yeah.
But they're using it to distract us, as voters. Like, it's this big distraction. It's terrible.
Yeah. Well,
because it's not as bad as it seems.
And I went back like 100 years, and every year, other than 18 out of the last 105 years, we've been in a surplus as a country. Other than that, we've been in deficit, growing our national debt. So it's not a new thing.
Well, let's talk about what a surplus means. So guys, remember, if the government is in surplus, that means that we're taxing people, taxing me and you, more than what the government is putting out in the economy. What the government, the money is generated in the economy, right? So they're taxing more than they're actually giving the private sector, which means me and you and businesses. So if the government is in surplus, that means all the money is in the government and not in the economy, the private sector, me and you. Mm-hmm. That's what a surplus means. Right? So, and then there's so there's the foreign sector, there's the government sector, and there's the private sector. Right? So you hear about these 3. They're kind of like a teeter-totter. They go hand in hand. So the more money the consumer has, the more in debt the government is. The more money that the government has, the less money that the consumer has. And think about it like this too. I like to relate it to real estate, because I feel like we kind of all can relate to that. But imagine you have a $500,000 home. If it's fully paid off, you've got your $500,000 home. The home can appreciate, you can live in it, you can rent it out, you can do what you want. But now imagine if you have your $500,000 home, but you also have a $500,000 mortgage. Okay, so you've now got $500,000 cash in your hand because you got a loan out against the asset. You've also still got the asset. My hand's moving over here. So you've got 2 assets. You've got the asset in the real estate, and you've got the $500,000 in your cash. Both can make you money. You can still rent out the home as long as the income from the home that you're renting out covers the debt payment. You're good. You've got 2 assets appreciating. It's called leverage, right? So instead of just 1 asset, you have 2 that are making you money. That's what the government's doing. Yeah.
So it actually isn't a smart idea to stop borrowing if they can make money off of what they're borrowing.
But the argument against that is, just to play devil's advocate, is that if interest rates were to really spike and GDP were to really go down, we would be in trouble. So don't get me wrong. It's not like it's this perfect, pretty situation that it's like, oh, it's not a problem. What I'm saying is it's not as big of a deal as they make it out to be. Like, as of right now, we're in control. We can afford it.
Yeah. So spending could be a problem if economically things change. So, but we have a lot of kind of leeway at this point. It's not really
the
a
average
concern
interest rate. You want to compare it to real estate. The average interest rate on the national debt is 2.4%. If you could go out and get a mortgage for 2.4%, would you not do it?
Yeah, in a second. So, I mean,
I would do it.
Yeah. So it's
definitely.
It's actually they're being smart in taking the debt on because
I don't want to call anybody in the government smart.
Okay.
They're being strategic.
Yeah, it's strategic. It's a way of using leverage to grow. So
if you guys are just joining, we have some people just joining. We're talking about the government debt, and we've just shown a couple of charts that saying it's at an all-time high. This might be what you see. Man, I cannot get that right. It's so weird. It's at an all-time high, but yet as a percentage of income, because our income is also at an all-time high. As a percentage of income, the payments are very, very low. This goes back to 1950. So as a percentage of actually our income. So think of it like this. You might say, oh, my debt is at an all-time high. But if your income is also at an all-time high, you're okay with having that amount of debt.
Right.
You might be growing your business. You might be, spending more money because you have more money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really that simple.
Yeah.
So
I also found it interesting, too, that the
yeah.
last time the U.S. was not in debt was in 1835.
What do you mean?
That was the last time that we, as a country, had not taken on debt. So we've been in debt and growing our debt for the last 100, 200, almost 200 years.
So like even in the Clinton days, you're saying we still had debt. We were just running at a surplus.
No, we were growing. Like every president that has come in, other than there was like a 10-year period in the 1920s, 1920 to 1930, where we grew, like we had surplus, but we had so much debt that we didn't come out of debt.
Got it.
But every president, the Clintons, Bushes, Obama, everyone has grown our national debt.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with Social Security too, we're trying to mix in this conversation of the debt because I feel like people are commingling the two.
Yeah.
They're talking about because we're in so much debt, we're not going to have Social Security. And the two aren't as related as people think.
No.
So
not really at all.
Not really at all. So just because we have a large national debt does not mean we're not going to have Social Security.
Yeah.
Now, if there's not enough money coming into the Social Security fund, as much money as going out of the Social Security fund, and if they're spending the money in the Social Security fund, then yes, that will affect Social Security.
And that's what if there is a problem with Social Security, that's going to be the problem. This year, or I should say 2018, was the first year that it was actually a net negative going into Social Security. So it was $79 billion that was taken as a benefit out of Social Security.
Right.
And was not, so the negative was $79 billion that was overtaken. That was the net negative. Yeah, the net negative.
Got it.
So, and that's going to continue because the reason for that is because we have a lot of the baby boomers. We have a fertility decline. People aren't having as many babies, so that means that people entering the workforce are fewer. Right. So we have this large sum. It is backwards.
Isn't it weird?
So we have this large sum of people
think we'd be used to
that are kind of starting to begin taking the benefits of Social Security, and then we have less people paying into Social Security. So that's where we are going to start seeing this decline in the gap, kind of a one step forward, two step back, as the next kind of 10, 15 years go along.
But again, they're in control of that. Like I feel like truthfully, no matter who politicians are, like I can't stand it. I feel like they want you to feel like it's out of control.
Right.
They want you to feel like we need to rely on someone new that's going to come in and save the day.
Yeah.
But really, they're all under control because they just got rid of several programs, one of which was file and suspend. So they already got rid of, and this was a couple years ago, they got rid of a program where a spouse could actually file their spouse's benefits and suspend their own so that it could grow to a much higher amount, and then they could start taking their own at 70. Or 69 or whatever. They suspend it until it gets growth, and now they've got this huge payment, and they took that away. So, and that's just one of a few of the programs that they took away. So they're already adjusting. They are in control. I don't want to give the government all this credit, but at the same time, you can't just think they're a bunch of blubbering idiots. That's what they almost want you to think, so that again they can attack each other. Yeah. In political races.
Yeah, and the reality when it comes to things like Social Security, supplementing, if we get to the point where they're projecting, the Treasury's projecting that in 2034, that fund that's I think like 2.89 trillion is what's in the trust fund of Social Security. They're expecting that will then be dwindled out by 2034. And so then at that point, only about 75% of what is needed is going to be brought in. So it's going to have to be made up, whether that's increasing Social Security taxes on your income, whether it's that the government will then just
decrease in COLA adjustments.
Yeah.
COLA is cost of living adjustments, which they already did. They stopped COLA adjustments for, I think I should have looked that up, but I think it was 3 or 4 years during right after the recession.
Yeah.
They stopped COLA adjustments.
And no matter who's in office, they're going to take care of it. They're going to use it to fight each other. But at the end of the day, it's going to be handled. And after a while, this is also a short period of time where that huge growth of people that are taking the benefits, and then the fewer people that are paying into it, they're going to start shifting back into it, and it'll equal out again. It's a pendulum swing where it's swinging really, really far, and then it's going to have to settle in the middle because there's
it's a
going to be
matter
more
of
people.
When they take care of it. Because I feel like they can be late to the game. Like they can feel like, oh, we need to take care of it, but they might be late to that. Like for instance, in 2008, the Fed started lowering rates way too late.
Right.
Like they made a mistake. So they're humans, they can make mistakes, but everybody knows it does need to be taken care of and how it needs to be taken care of. It's just a matter of their timing. Is their timing going to be right?
Right.
So it's going to be very hard for Social Security to go away completely.
Well, yeah, it won't.
They've also
won't go
started
away.
raising retirement age.
Right.
For the longest time, retirement age was 65. Yeah. And then now, as you're older and older, your retirement age is like 66 and 2 months, 66 and 7 months, 67. Oh, you do have a chart.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyone that was born after 1960, the retirement age is 67. So you can begin taking Social Security at 62, but you're only actually getting 75% of what you get if you waited till 67. Now, if you wait till you're 70, you're getting about 125% ish. 124, I think is what the actual number is of what you'd be getting. So there's benefits to waiting, and it ends up being more so what you think you're going to live. I mean, if you, because there's break evens basically on if you take it at 62, you're going to get an X amount of dollars over X amount of time. If you wait, you're going to get more, and you'll get a kind of a straighter curve up. Mm-hmm. So it just depends.
But you missed out on dollars, even though it was a lower payment. You missed out on a bucket of money that you would have had in your pocket. Yeah. So you have to calculate that break even. If you need help with that, obviously reach out to us. Or there's a calculator right on socials, ssg.gov. No, I think it's just ss.gov, socialsecurity.gov, I think is the website. But I really think that you just have to find your break even, what works best for you and your health and your longevity, your genetics, longevity, and your family.
It might be what your income you need. If you have a set number that you're like, hey, I need this amount of income, then you might have to wait a little bit longer, or maybe shorter. If you know what you need, that you might be surprised that maybe you can get it earlier than you thought.
Now, one of the other things I put in the title of this, we talked about the government debt. Yeah. Talk about Social Security, Medicare. Another fear is that Medicare will go away. And I feel like Medicare is a little more sticky because they're focusing so much on this. Legislation could really change the way Medicare goes with healthcare and things like that. So that's one thing we can't predict. Right. Is what they change with healthcare. I feel like both parties really want to do something with healthcare. So there definitely could be a change there. I don't know what it will be, obviously, but Medicare is something that, I'll just say this, we all should be saving appropriately so that we can afford to take care of our medical expenses. We should kind of factor that into your financial plan, just like a little fudge factor, just a little bit. Because I'm not as confident about Medicare as I am about Social Security and the government debt not really being a huge problem.
Yeah, well, Social Security is mostly self-funded. Whereas Medicare is not. It's a government-funded.
Well, in Medicare, I mean, for instance, I had a client in here yesterday saying like he's getting a drug that's $10,000 every 2 weeks. Yeah. Like the spending from Medicare is so much more amplified than the spending from Social Security. Social Security is much more calculated. Right. The only thing that they really can't account for in Social Security is your longevity. Right. Because they know you're paying in cost of living adjustments, interest rate adjustments. They know what they're going to make on the fund, things like that. They can calculate a lot of all that in Social Security. Medicare, they don't know how much I'm going to need medical aid at what age. Is much less. Yeah. Who's going to go, I don't know. I just feel like Medicare is not as sure of a thing. Yeah. It's just one more concerning thing. So what else? Do you have anything else on the, and Social Security or debt? Because we've actually went 20 minutes already. Yeah. I have another cool little chart here actually that I felt like was interesting and definitely worth sharing out. So another chart that I just saw, I think it was the New York Times. It was in a major publication that household debt is at a record high. So this is the top chart. Household debt is at a record all-time high as a whole. So when you see that chart, it's like, oh my gosh, 2008 is going to come again. There's a huge debt crisis. But again, they're not taking into account the assets that we have and the income that we have. That's also at not all-time highs, but it's fairly close. So here's a chart that says indebtedness, like how much we are in debt in comparison to our assets. And look at where that is. So that is since 1990 anyway. So we're talking about 30 years. We are at a 30-year low of debt to assets. So it's certainly not concerning as far as the way the economy goes. And again, as growth goes in the economy, which we're talking about, can we sustain the $20 trillion a year,
right,
growth, or the income, the GDP, which is how we pay for our debt.
Yeah.
I just think it's not as concerning as everybody really just wants you to panic.
Yeah,
man.
I think it's just be wary of the headlines. I think that's the biggest thing.
Do your own research.
And I will say it is hard, like in researching.
Oh my gosh, we were researching for hours.
I mean, it's hard because you have to kind of go through and sift through, 30 pages of people just panicking and making big deals about things that when you actually look at the numbers of it, is not worth panicking. So when you see headlines like highest deficit ever, highest, debt ever, in
highest household debt, highest default on payments.
Yeah. Commercial debt at a record high. Just be careful of that because they're just headline hunting.
We're trying to not get political, RT. Knock it off.
Yeah.
It's not nice.
So just, be wary of that. It's headline hunting. If you actually look at it, the ratios is what we want to look at. And, as far as that goes, we're not in a scary situation. And in a lot of cases, we're at a low, as far as income or household debt. So just be wary of it. Be
wary of the headlines. Be wary of what every politician says.
Yeah, it's one of those like
every one of them.
Is it true? Is it true that we're at a higher debt? Yes, like we are at record highs. So those are truth. You can't say that they're lying, but it's just dangerous because what they're trying to prove with that and trying to scare tactics. That's easy for me to say. Is what they're trying to get. They're trying to churn. They're getting it's clickbait.
Yeah, that's also like my kids if they go to a friend's house and they're like, yeah, their parents are home and they're leaving in 10 minutes.
Right.
Like they're missing out a large piece of information that is very helpful. That is what would go into my calculated decision. You know what I mean? Like they're telling the truth at this moment of a piece of the information. Right. Like they're omitting another piece, and it's just. It's just something that we wanted to put out there. We wanted you to know that Social Security, although there will be changes, there already has been changes. They're in control of it, and it's not going to just one day, like there will be a headline like Social Security is done. And it's not what's going to happen here. And so, and with the national debt, it's not like rates change overnight.
Right.
Like interest rates don't just go up overnight. And so I feel like it's something that everybody needs to really realize and know, especially when planning for a business expansion or, buying a home or retiring. Like it's just something that everybody needs to know.
Yeah. Oh, another thing, it kind of goes back to when we talked about like the trade war, when we talked, and that people are worried about China and that they own so much of our debt. And the reality is they only own 1.3 trillion, which is about 5% of our debt.
So only 1.3 trillion. So that's another number. Like people will throw out and be like, they own over $1 trillion.
But it's only 5% of our
overall
of our deficit
of our overall debt.
So it's not a huge. These numbers sound big because if you were to write 1.3 trillion down. You'd lose count of the zeros. You'd be like, I don't even know, a couple commas here and we're good. But if you actually look at the total numbers, it changes everything when you have the whole picture.
Yeah. So in summary, our debt payments, this was actually as of 2018, I think. Yes. Our annual debt payments, what did we say?
389
billion.
Yep.
So our economy is 20 trillion per year. So the debt payments that we are paying out are way, 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 way less than what we are bringing in. We can afford the debt, essentially. The average interest rate on all our debt is 2.4%. I think any of us, we could get a home loan at 2.4% would rush at that. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. Then also Social Security, something we talked about, that it's very calculated, that they are already adjusting things. They're adjusting the retirement age. They're getting rid of some of the additional benefits, the file and suspend, things like that. I'm not saying Social Security won't get tightened because they are paying out more than what is coming in. That is a fact. But again, it's not like you're going to wake up one day and it's like Social Security is gone today.
Right.
So it's just not going to be a quick factoring thing. And then Medicare, as I said, I worry a lot more about Medicare than I do Social Security or the debt, because Medicare is something that they did not calculate all the costs that are going out for all these baby boomers.
Yeah.
It has not been calculated. So legislation will more than likely change the way we use Medicare. And with healthcare, I mean, I think that's something that's probably more than likely to change than anything else, is Medicare.
Yeah, for sure. And needs to probably.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think that's good. 26 minutes.
Woohoo!
Took enough of your time. Enjoy the weekend.
Again, guys, thanks. Share this out. If you have any questions, reach out to us, comment, and we will definitely answer. But thank you so much, and we will see you soon. See you next week.
Weekend.